In this next section, we will look at the knowing of social-emotional development milestones. How does knowing these milestones help you build supportive relationships and promote social-emotional development of infants and toddlers? Because some research has indicated that families and caregivers demonstrate less understanding of when children are capable of reaching milestones, especially social-emotional ones. This lack of understanding may lead to adults having unrealistic expectations for young children and ultimately frustration. It is important to determine if a child is on track or if there may be a delay. Without knowing what is appropriate for various ages, you can't know if something is on track or if the child may have a delay. It's important to identify strengths, to intervene early to maximize the effectiveness of interventions. For ensuring that expectations are age appropriate, for example, you wouldn't expect a 2-year-old to share or verbally tell you what is wrong. For planning developmentally appropriate experiences and activities, for preventing children from engaging in challenging behavior if they are frustrated by the environment, social situation, or unable to engage in tasks they would like to. For better understanding child behavior, and for helping caregivers interact with children appropriately. For aligning parent and caregiver expectations about behavior and development. How does knowing social-emotional milestones help you build supportive relationships and promote social-emotional development of infants and toddlers? As babies grow from birth through the first 3 years of life, they develop different social and emotional abilities and use different behaviors for communication. For example, the newborn may only know things feel okay or things don't feel okay. He may be quiet and alert when things are okay, cry when they are not, and sleep the rest of the time. A newborn may cry urgently for food, but we expect that most 2-year-olds will be able to wait a few minutes and maybe even help set the table. A 21-month-old may throw herself on the floor in a tantrum, but by the age of 3, we expect that a child will sometimes be able to express frustration in more age-appropriate ways, such as saying, "I don't like that, you make me mad." By age 3, most children have a variety of relationships, including peer friendships, primary attachments with parents, and close caring relationships with other relatives and caregivers. They have formed strong ideas about what it is like to be in relationships and whether it is generally pleasant or not, depending on the specific relationship. The developmental course of social-emotional wellness may be described by stages or as milestones, which do not always develop in a smooth course. Each new stage of a baby's development produces changes in the relationship and requires changes or adaptation on the part of the adult caregiver. For example, as the toddler wants to do more for himself, he may reject the help of a caregiver, causing the caregiver to allow the toddler more independence. The sensitive and knowledgeable caregiver learns to read the infant's or toddler's cues that indicate developmental changes. In this developmental continuum from birth to 15 months, there are different social emotional indicators. The first and second columns, attachment, trust and security and self-awareness, identity and self-esteem, focus on the elements of social emotional development that we have been discussing, forming close and secure relationships and experiencing, expressing, and regulating emotions. Out of a strong positive attachment relationship in which young children receive responsive care and are helped to manage and express their emotions, they develop trust in others and a sense of security. Through relationships that support their self-awareness, young children develop a sense of who they are and what they can accomplish and learn. If a child does not have opportunities to form nurturing, supportive relationships, it is significantly more difficult for them to progress through the social-emotional milestones. The third column, exploration, autonomy, and independence, focuses on another element of social-emotional development, the ability to explore and learn. Through relationships that support safe exploration, infants and young children gain the sense of autonomy and independence that is so necessary to learning and success in school and in later life. Throughout development, new challenges emerge. As new development occurs, other development may temporarily shift or become disrupted. For example, as a child begins to learn to walk or talk, his sleep may be disrupted. and he may suddenly wake more often or have difficulty falling asleep. As a child develops, the caregiver's relationship with the child will need to shift. As a toddler is able to crawl or walk, the caregiver will need to allow him increased independence to explore. Sometimes our expectations of children lead us to view their behavior as challenging, when in fact it may be typical developmental behavior. For example, while tantrums can be challenging, they are a part of typical development. Challenging behavior may also be a consequence of a skill that has not yet developed. For example, a child may bite because she lacks the ability to use words to describe what she needs. Social emotional development in young children does not always proceed as expected. In some instances, infants or toddlers may not give clear or consistent cues about their needs, making it difficult for families and caregivers to know how to respond. Social emotional screening can help families and caregivers further identify a child's social emotional strengths, as well as better understand possible areas of need. Screening can help indicate whether a young child should receive a more in-depth assessment or evaluation. Screening involves more than the use of a validated tool or instrument. The screening process includes gathering information from families, caregivers, and others who know the young child best. In addition to understanding individual children's cues and typical social emotional development, learning about a child's specific traits or temperament will also help caregivers and families better understand and respond to a young child. Each child is born with his or her own temperament or individual way of approaching the world. A child's behavior and approach to the world is shaped by his or her experiences and interactions with the adults in his or her life. Understanding a child's temperament helps us provide more responsive and sensitive care. Some aspects of temperament are noticeable from birth and continue throughout life. Right from the start, we each have a unique genetic makeup, which includes our nervous system and the way we take in sensory stimulation. For example, some people may like bright lights and loud music. Others prefer the lights low and the music quiet. Some people eat and sleep in pretty regular patterns. Others have no pattern at all. The concept of temperament helps us understand that children engage with the world according to their inborn characteristics. A large part of a caregiver's job is to adapt his or her own temperament to meet the needs of a young child. For example, a caregiver who likes bright lights and loud music may need to provide less stimulation by talking more softly, reducing the lights and other noise. The degree to which this is managed is referred to as goodness of fit. The sensitive adult adapts his or her own behavior in such a way as to not require the infant to make the adaptation, knowing it would be stressful for the infant. The adult seeks to match her behavior to meet the infant's needs. It is also important to understand the impact of inborn biological differences on the behavior of individual children. Learning about temperament can help caregivers understand more about how these inborn traits play a major role in a child's pattern of behavior and may eventually have a major influence on how a child feels about him or herself. For example, if a toddler is easily distracted and has irregular patterns of sleeping and eating, yet no accommodations are made to meet his needs for eating and sleeping at different times or to reduce the stimulation to help him become calm, he may begin to feel that others don't understand him or caregivers don't know how to help him. Understanding an infant's or toddler's temperament can help us begin to anticipate what situations may be easy or more difficult for the child. Sometimes forming relationships with infants and toddlers can be easier or more difficult, depending on a variety of factors, including the child's and caregiver's personality or temperament. There are 9 traits that are considered to be key components of a child's temperament. These include activity level, biological rhythms, approach and withdrawal, mood, intensity of reaction, sensitivity, adaptability, distractibility, and persistence. The groupings for temperament traits on this slide are discussed and illustrated in the Program for Infant-Toddler Caregivers, a training developed by WestEd in California. We are not trying to label kids. Instead, thinking about different temperament types will help you become better observers of young children's needs. It is the caregiver's responsibility to adjust their own temperament to better match the temperament of individual infants and toddlers. The easy or flexible child is generally easy to care for. She adapts quickly to new situations, is biologically regulated, is optimistic in her approach to new people, and generally has a positive mood. She tends to learn to use the toilet without a lot of difficulty, sleeps through the night, and has regular eating and sleeping patterns. She enjoys new people and places and typically gives mild signals of distress. Even when very unhappy, this child may cry very little. The feisty child is often the opposite. This child may be hard to get to sleep, and sleeping and eating patterns are irregular. The toilet training may be more difficult because of irregular bowel patterns. This child may fuss or cry at loud noises and is often wary of new people and things. He is slow to warm up and may escalate to temper tantrums quickly if frustrated. He may have frequent unhappy moods. This child may be very noisy when even slightly unhappy. The third group of children often has difficulty adapting to new people and places. They are called fearful, shy, or slow to warm. Their mood may not be easy to gauge because it takes longer for them to engage with a group or new activity. Their biological rhythms may or may not be regular. When identifying a child's temperament, think about what is the child like? How calm or active is she? How does she respond to changes in routines? How does she deal with a lot of stimulation? How does she let you know she likes something, dislikes something, etc.? Do you think that any of these temperament traits are part of what is challenging to you? Is it because the child is different from you? Or is it perhaps that child is similar to you? Some temperaments are easy for us to handle than others, but it's still very important for children to feel accepted for who they are. On the next two slides, you'll see strategies for how you can develop a good fit with a child. This is how you will adjust your temperament to match the infant or toddler in your care. Why is understanding temperament important? When we understand a child's temperament, we can begin to anticipate what situations may be easy or more difficult for him. By understanding a child's temperament, we can nurture and support strengths as well as help a child learn to cope with challenges. We can adapt how we care for young children based on his or her temperament style. Understanding temperament is an important part of and way to build and enhance relationships between young children and adults.